Hey everybody, in this second video I'm going to show you how to take your blank grid that we made in the last video and use that to draw an image correctly in the correct proportion with the correct shading if necessary, and how to basically transfer an image using your grid. That's what this is. Alright, set the place card aside. You're going to need your pencil. You're going to need your blank grid that we made in the last video. Remember, we measured out 1-inch squares. If you have not done this, stop this video please. Go back to the previous video and watch that and do this along with the demonstration. I think the video was under 10 minutes, so it really shouldn't take you very long to do, but you can pause the video if I go a little bit too fast. You should have 8 rows and 6 columns. I numbered and lettered them so that way I could easily figure out which block I'm in. Like if I'm working right here, I know I'm in block 6D, and it kind of helps me match this up. So I've got my blank grid, and then I'm going to pick one of those 4 images included in the slide. Now I've already prepared your image with the grid on top that matches the grid and on your drawing. So you're ready to go. Now you may not have a printer at home. If you don't have a printer at home, that's fine. You have a screen. You're obviously looking at a screen, so you can just look at the image on the screen. You can even kind of zoom in just to see what it is that you're looking at. So just use the gridded image on the screen that you chose. There are 4 different choices. There's the skull, which is kind of a medium difficulty because there is some shading. If you want a big challenge, I've got this tiger. If anybody's watching some Tiger King, that might be a fun challenge. If you like figurative drawing, an eye is always a big challenge to draw. So this grid can help you make sure that you know how to draw an eye and all of the details of an eye. That's another kind of a bigger challenge. And if you want to kind of keep it a little simpler and stay away from shading, I've got a classic Iron Man picture here that you can just use the grid to transfer the design one block at a time. And this has a little bit of shading, but it's pretty black and white, so there's not a lot of variety. We're going to go with the skull today for the demonstration. So what you're going to do is you're going to transfer this image from the gridded image to your blank grid. Now normally if we were in class, I would have you print your picture and then we would have to measure and draw a grid directly on top of your picture, same way we did here. I've done that step for you. So you're just practicing the idea of transferring from here to here. Many of you have likely done this in a previous art class. That's great. This is just practice of a skill that is really helpful for many people. And this may be a way that you could draw portraits or images much more easily than just freehanding. Some people like the grid, some people don't, but however you can use this as a tool to improve your drawing skills, that is what we're going for. So what you can do is go block by block. So if I look at block 1A here, block 1A, in this square on my image, there's no information there. There's no picture, there's no part of the skull there. So that block just stays blank. That's a freebie block there. If I move over to B, 1B, I see that there is this line right here of the outside of the skull. It looks like it doesn't quite go all the way to the halfway mark. It starts about 1/4 of the way over, about right there, and it ends about halfway up this side of the square. So about right there. So I know I need to draw that. Now later on I might go in and add some shading, or I could go ahead and kind of add in that shading right now. I see a little bit of shading there. My next block, I see C, and then I've got a curve and it goes a little bit further up in that square. And you can kind of estimate. Again, if we were doing this in class, I'd probably give you a lot of different tools to use. A good trick is if you're having trouble concentrating, block out everything but the one square that you're trying to focus on. Because sometimes all you're trying to do is draw this one line and you get distracted by all this stuff down here. And that'll help you when you get down here. You're supposed to be looking at just what's in one square, and sometimes that might just be a couple of little lines. The idea is that you're just doing one little part of the information of this drawing at a time. So I'm going to shade that in. You can kind of shade as you go, or you can go back in and shade later. Now I'm going to take this line and I'm going to go all the way over to here. It looks like it goes a little bit lower. And then in E, it looks like it goes down and hits the bottom about a quarter of the way over. And then if I look at this, I see it's kind of lumpy. So I can go back in after I've done a few blocks and kind of even out my line there. And then it looks like on the next row, I just see a little line there about to the middle of the bottom. And I can start to figure out where that line is. It looks like there's really just some shading. So I can see that that shading starts and goes a little bit into B. I can see this shading right here. Looks like it's right here. So the grid can also help me decide where my shades go. And then it's a little brighter there. I want you to try to put some shading down, but you don't have to put every shade down. So then this next couple of blocks has some shading in it, but I might kind of go back in and do that shading later. I don't see another real outline until I get all the way over here to E, and I see that little tiny line right there. So I have to make a little tiny line right there, and then I'm going to finish out that row. So I've transferred this portion. I can still go in and transfer some of my shading that I see here. I might probably go back in and do that a little bit more later. I see that there's some shades kind of going down here. This would be a good one to do in pen also, because you've got a lot of hatch lines. So this will be a task for me to shade in and try to copy the shades here as much as possible. All right, so I'm going on to the next one. And I'm not going to draw this whole drawing here, but I do want to get down a little bit further. I'm going to go ahead and finish this part of the outline because this is all shadows. So when I get to the more detailed areas, I have to really kind of pay attention to that grid and where do those shapes fall in that particular square. Don't worry about the whole artwork. Just worry about what lines and shapes am I drawing in this particular square. Square 4B, for example. Square 4B, I see a line right here. Don't worry about what that line is. Don't worry about what you're trying to define. I see a line here, and then I see shadows. So, we naturally tend to think, oh, I'm drawing an eye. I'm drawing an eye socket. But as soon as you draw an eye, you start to get hung up on what you think an eye looks like. Just draw the lines you actually see in that block. So then in this block, I see a line that goes here, and it's just basically like a big C curve, right? And I can just draw directly on this, but you can kind of hold your pencil up to the screen and kind of draw along with it. Don't draw on your screen. But just by looking at where these lines go and how they hit the different lines of the grid, I can get this shape copied here correctly. Now, ideally, you would have a picture that is maybe this size, and your drawing would be like 3 times bigger, and you would be enlarging as well as transferring. We aren't going to be able to do that for this project. Your job is going to be to transfer this image to this paper. Now, you can see I've spent about 10 minutes, and I've gotten several different parts of this done. I could probably work on this and in about a half an hour finish it. It might take you a little longer being new to the grid method, but your job is going to be to identify shapes, figure out where on the grid they land, like this is right here, this is right here, in this 6th row I see, oh, it looks like it's a little bit higher in that square. I went a little bit too low. And you can edit as needed. But you're trying to land these features in the right spot on the grid. So this is your challenge, is to complete 1 out of the 4 options and transfer it onto the grid. Good luck. Please let me know if you have any questions, and you'll have a full week to work on not only making your blank grid, but also completing your image transfer. All right, see you later, guys.